broken Fong, breaking trust. The twin moons of Kalos hung low in the sky, their pale light shimmering through the dense canopy. The wind hissed through razor-leaf trees, carrying the scent of blood and ozone. Velrax limped through the underbrush, one arm cradling her scorched side, the other clutching the two small cubs trembling at her heels. Karik, barely waist-high, snarled at every shadow. Lunak, younger and smaller, whimpered softly but matched his mother's pace without protest. The hunter and Velrax admired their spirit, but her vision was blurring. Her time was short. She had failed. Their dropship was gone, their units slaughtered. And now, she, the fiercest tracker in the Vrekthale clans, was running not from enemies, but from death itself. Her injuries would take days to heal. The cubs wouldn't survive a single night without protection. She needed shelter, a temporary guardian. She picked up a faint energy signature, unnatural technology, a human life sign. Her upper lip curled in disdain. Primitive, fragile, sentimental, but desperate times shattered pride. Velrax crouched in the shadows as the clearing came into view. A structure, makeshift yet precise. Metal plates welded into a dome, a perimeter of spike traps and sensor arrays. A small fire crackled near the entrance. She saw him, a lone human, tall and bearded, sitting on an overturned crate, adjusting a broken rifle. "Stay hidden," she whispered to her cubs. "Speak not. Bite if he touches you." The cubs obeyed. She stepped into the light. Daniel Cross didn't reach for his weapon. He blinked once and calmly set the rifle down. "Well," he muttered, "you're either lost or you're about to kill me." Velrax grunted, blood dripping from her side. "You will take them," she said, gesturing sharply to the cubs as they stepped forward, eyes wide. "Feed them. Protect them." Daniel's brow furrowed. "Cubs? Yours. Yes. I return in 7 nights. If harmed, I end you." She tossed a hunting knife to his feet. Daniel stared at the alien children. One snarled, the other blinked curiously at the fire. "And if I say no?" he asked quietly. "You won't," she said simply, then turned and vanished into the forest. The door shut behind them with a soft hiss. The silence was thick. The cubs glared up at him, uncertain, wary. Daniel sighed and knelt. "My name's Daniel," he said. "I'm not great with kids, but I have soup, a fire, and blankets. That's a start." Karik hissed. Lunak bared small fangs, but didn't move. Daniel held up his hands, non-threatening. "Right. Soup first, or cries later." That night, Velrax watched from the trees. She expected chaos. The cubs were bred for war, not comfort. Yet they accepted the soup. The small one curled up by the fire. The older, Karik, stayed alert, but didn't attack. The human didn't try to dominate them. He offered, waited, respected. Soft, she thought. Naive. Yet, something in his tone, the way he moved, spoke of control without force. Authority without threat. The next day, Daniel constructed a hammock from netting and spare cords, teaching the cubs by example. Karik grunted, skeptical, until Daniel pretended to fall from it and feigned injury. Lunak laughed, an alien sound, high-pitched and warbling. Velrax's ears twitched. The cubs had never laughed before. Each night, she returned to the trees. Watched. Waited. She saw Daniel tending Lunak's scraped knee. Saw him teach Karik to sharpen a stick. Watched him trace letters in the dirt and say their sounds. Saw him lose patience, step away, breathe deep, and return with calm resolve. She saw a human treating her cubs not as soldiers, but as children. She hated the feeling growing in her chest. Hope was for prey. But in that small firelit shelter, her cubs, her legacy, were not just surviving. They were beginning to live. And so, hidden in the forest, Velrax stayed, watching, bleeding, and wondering. What have I done? Warm fires, cold stares. The third day brought rain, thick, relentless sheets that turned the clearing into a muddy basin. Daniel had prepared a gutter system weeks ago, rigged from scrap hull plating and conduit pipes, so the dome held firm against the downpour. Inside, the fire flickered low, casting long shadows on the curved interior walls. Karik sat cross-legged near the corner, sharpening a piece of jagged metal with one of Daniel's whetstones. Linak had discovered a box of discarded tech parts and was now stacking them carefully, forming strange, uneven towers. Daniel watched them quietly from the other side of the room as he stirred a small pot of ration stew. He still wasn't sure what they could or couldn't eat, but so far, no vomit or hives. That was a win. Today, Daniel said, we're going to make traps. Karik grunted, but looked up. Linak tilted her head. Not to hurt anything, Daniel added. Just to warn us if something big's coming. He drew a quick diagram in the dirt. 2 sticks, a tension cord, and a signal chime. This is called a trip line. Simple, quiet, effective. Karik gave him a skeptical look, as if to say, that won't stop anything. Daniel shrugged. True, but sometimes knowing a threat is coming is better than trying to stop it head on. The cub blinked. That made sense. Daniel noticed. You ever set a perimeter with motion alerts? Karik nodded once. Same idea, but human version. Linak spoke her first word that morning. Human soft. Daniel chuckled. Sometimes, but soft doesn't mean weak. In the trees, Velrax narrowed her eyes. The human was teaching, not commanding, not drilling, teaching, and they were listening. This wasn't how the Vrekthale raised young. Cubs were thrown into blood arenas by age 7. Discipline through dominance. Learning through pain. Yet her daughter was giggling as she tripped one of Daniel's dummy alarms and sent a rock tumbling into a pot with a clang. Karik reset the trap, his movements slow but precise. They were adapting. Later that night, as the rain lessened and the fire glowed warmer, Daniel pulled out a faded, water-damaged book. Its pages were lined with sketched images of earth animals. This one's called a bear, he said, showing the cubs. Karik stared at the thick-furred creature. Predator? Oh yeah, Daniel nodded. Big, strong, scary. But also a good parent. Parent? Linak asked. Daniel tapped the page. Mama bear. She'll tear through steel to protect her cubs. Linak scooted closer. Like our mother? Daniel's smile faded a little. Yeah, I guess so. Karik looked away, suddenly distant. Daniel noticed. You miss her. The cub hesitated, then nodded. She's nearby, Daniel said softly. I think she checks in on you. She just needs time to heal. Neither cub replied, but neither turned away. The next morning, Daniel gave them chalk and motioned to the sidewall. Draw, he said. Anything. Linak drew a crude version of their destroyed ship, a burning crescent. Karik drew 2 clawed figures and a tree on fire. Pain etched in color. But then, Linak added a 3rd figure beside the cubs. A tall one, human-shaped, smiling. Daniel paused, one hand on the wall. That me? She nodded. You fix. He blinked. I fix. You fix broken, she said simply. That night, Velrax saw the drawings too. Her stomach twisted, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous to a warrior. Gratitude. She had seen humans as a liability, a weak, sentimental race that clung to ideals in place of strength. But this man, this Daniel, was different. He didn't just keep her cubs alive. He made them stronger in ways she had never considered. They still practiced combat, sparring gently under his watch. But now they also built things, questioned things, felt things. Karik smiled today. Not the predator's grin, but something softer. And Linak laughed without flinching. Velrax knelt among the trees, claws in the dirt. What are you turning them into, human? She didn't know if she should be furious or amazed. Blood and bark. The wind shifted on the 6th night. Daniel noticed it first. Not in the trees or the air, but in the behavior of the cubs. Karik had become restless, pacing the perimeter without prompting. Linak sat stiff, ears angled toward the distant hills. They sensed something. Predators. Not the intelligent kind, just native wildlife. But that didn't make them less deadly. Kalo's ecosystem was ruthless. On a good day, its apex beast could tear through armor plating. And Daniel's motion traps had been going off all evening. Too many times. He secured the dome and armed the electric perimeter, powering it with a hand-crank generator. All right, kids, he said, voice calm. Inside. Now. Karik shook his head. I fight. You fight only if I say so, Daniel said. eyes locking with the cubs. I've seen what's out there. You want to protect your sister? Stay with her. Karik hesitated, then obeyed. Daniel opened a crate and pulled out a homemade plasma spear and a sidearm. Sloppy work, barely held together, but it was all he had. Outside, shadows moved through the trees. Heavy footfalls, snarls low and guttural. Then silence. Daniel exhaled just once. They came fast. The first beast, a four-limbed reptilian mass with tusks and armor-like scales, charged from the darkness and crashed into the outer fence. Sparks erupted as it shrieked in pain, but pushed through. Two more followed behind, smaller but faster. Daniel didn't hesitate. He hurled the plasma spear straight into the throat of the lead beast. It fell with a gurgling howl, twitching. The others lunged at him. He dove aside, pulling his sidearm and firing into the night. One round struck the second beast in the eye. The third tackled him into the mud. Inside the dome, Karik growled. He needs help. No. Lunak cried, clutching her brother's arm. He's one human. Karik barked. They kill him. But Lunak shook her head. He said stay. They froze as the sound of snarling and a human scream echoed outside. Karik couldn't wait anymore. He dashed out, Lunak right behind him. Daniel was pinned beneath the beast, mud thick around him, clawed hands straining to keep its jaws from his face. Then suddenly, snap, the beast reared back, howling, its side slashed open. Karik. The cub leapt again, claws raking its back. Lunak grabbed a burning log from the fire pit and jammed it into the creature's flank. The beast shrieked, stumbled, and then a roar cut the air like thunder. Velrax dropped from the trees like a falling comet. Her claws found the beast's throat before it could react. She twisted. It fell. Silence. Daniel groaned, coughing mud. Not bad for kids. Velrax stood over him, panting, blood streaming down her side. Fool, she growled. He looked up, grinning. Nice to see you again, too. They dragged the carcasses to the tree line. The fire roared high. The cub sat nearby, bruised but wide-eyed. You disobeyed, Velrax said, crouching in front of them. I had to, Karik said. He needed help. Velrax's jaw clenched. She stared long at him, then at Lunak. You did not freeze. Lunak shook her head. You taught us not to. Velrax turned to Daniel. You risked everything. Why? Because they're worth it. They're warriors, she snapped. Not human children. They're both, he replied. And they can be more. Later, the four sat in silence around the fire. Daniel had bandaged his ribs. Velrax's wounds oozed slowly, but she ignored them. You changed them, she said quietly. Daniel sipped from a dented flask. Maybe, but I didn't make them weaker. She said nothing for a long time. They trust you, she said finally. I trust them back. That made her pause. Trust, a concept rarely uttered in her culture unless forged through years of combat. She looked at her cubs. Their eyes were brighter, wiser, still fierce, but also thoughtful. He hadn't weakened them. He'd shaped them. Velrax stood. I stay until we leave this world. Daniel nodded. You're welcome. I did not ask. He chuckled. Didn't think you did. That night, she did not hide in the trees. She sat beside the fire with a human and watched her cubs sleep under stars they might finally grow up beneath. And for the first time, she wondered, what else have I been wrong about? What comes after? The weeks passed in quiet evolution. Where once there had been cold wariness between species, now there was routine. Not harmony. Velrax was still a warrior, and Daniel still grumbled at her refusal to follow simple safety protocols. But the dome became something more than shelter. It became a home. Karik no longer flinched when Daniel corrected him. Lunak had begun teaching Velrax the Earth alphabet, giggling each time her mother growled in frustration over the difference between B and P. Velrax, for her part, began to respect the human's methods. Where predator culture demanded obedience, Daniel encouraged understanding. And somehow it worked. The cubs still trained. Velrax sparred with them daily in the clearing. But now they also designed traps with Daniel, practiced diplomacy in broken English, and helped upgrade the perimeter sensors using scavenged tech. Daniel had taught them how to adapt. Velrax had taught them how to endure. Together, they learned how to live. On the 22nd day, the beacon lit green. Daniel wiped his hands on a rag and squinted at the blinking panel. "We've got a signal," he muttered. "About time." Velrax stepped beside him, her eyes narrowing. "My people." Daniel nodded. "Yeah, I boosted the emergency transponder 3 days ago." Someone finally picked it up. Karik tilted his head. "What happens now?" Velrax paused. "They will come to retrieve us. Assess your condition, and judge what you've become." Linak frowned. "Judge?" "Yes," Velrax said. "Our society does not value change, especially not when it comes from humans." Daniel grunted. "Then maybe it's time your society gets over itself." She almost smiled. Almost. 2 days later, the sky cracked with thunder not born of weather. A sleek, angular Predator shuttle descended through the clouds, engines humming low. It landed just beyond the tree line, displacing the Earth in a slow, controlled burn. From it emerged a tall, imposing figure clad in obsidian armor, Commander Trelzak, head of the clanship overseers. 2 guards flanked him, weapons ready but lowered. Velrax stepped forward, her stance formal. Trelzak's cold gaze scanned the camp. "We received your distress call. Your cubs live. Impressive. And a human." "Essential," Velrax said. He raised a brow. "We do not make alliances with primitives." "No," she agreed. "We didn't. But we should." Trelzak's eyes narrowed. He turned to the cubs. "Step forward." They did. Proud. Steady. "You speak our tongue still?" he asked. Linak responded in perfect syntax. "Yes. And also his." Trelzak grunted. "Show me your strength." Karik stepped up to the nearest guard and asked, "Mock duel." The guard laughed, and in 2 seconds, Karik had him on the ground, disarmed and pinned. The commander blinked. Trelzak turned to Velrax. "They are different. They are better," she corrected. He motioned to Daniel. "You, human, what did you do to them?" Daniel stepped forward, wiping sweat from his neck. "I treated them like people. Taught them how to think, not just follow." Trelzak studied him in silence. "They're not just stronger," Daniel added. "They're smarter. That's what you should be afraid of, because if they're the future of your people, you'd better keep up." Karik and Linak stood taller at his words. Trelzak finally gave a small nod. "The Empire will hear of this." Carefully. Then he turned to Velrax. "What of you?" "I stay," she said. "For now. There's more I need to learn." That evening, the shuttle lifted off, leaving behind nothing but scorched grass and a ripple in the wind. Velrax sat beside Daniel once more, watching the fire dance. "You could have left," she said. "They would have taken you, brought you to the core systems, made you a curiosity." "I'm not interested in being anyone's zoo exhibit," Daniel muttered. "Besides, I've got repairs to finish, and 2 students who keep stealing my tools." He nodded toward the cubs, who were arguing over which cable connected to the radar dish. Velrax let out a low hum of approval. "They are not what I expected," she said. "Neither are you," Daniel replied. She looked at him sharply. "Don't take it as an insult," he added. "You're still terrifying, just in a slightly more well-rounded way now." She chuckled softly, a strange, rasping sound. The stars shimmered above them, endless and bright. Velrax whispered, more to herself than him. "We gave them strength. You gave them soul." Daniel watched the cubs laughing, tangled in wires and possibility. "Then maybe," he said, "we gave them a future."